Video to David Hogg, real American hero, out there working every day to overturn the Second Amendment. Want to send a thank you to all the police nationwide that have participated in all the drills that have been reported as mass tragedies. Each day we're getting closer and closer to losing our constitutional rights. These are the things we need in the 21st century to be kept safe from ourselves. So thank you to all the heroes out there. That said, let's talk about this very tragic Jacksonville Madden tournament shooting. New details out. They said we had a 24-year-old shooter. Very interesting that the Jacksonville Jaguars will be in their 24th season this upcoming NFL season. No doubt a coincidence. But the thing that's just really screaming at me, the coincidence, I can't even tell you what it's doing for me, this coincidence, but it is just, Look at the time of this shooting, 1:34 p.m. I got to tell you what's so funny about this. Just yesterday, I talked about this big old coincidence in the NFL. Josh Gordon with an April 13th birthday, 13/4, like 134, like the 134 in the afternoon shooting. He finally got activated by the Cleveland Browns on August 25th, 134 days after his birthday. And the thing about that is, in this language of Gematria, which is just a whole bunch of hogwash and conspiracy garbage, but at the same time that I'm just so fascinated by, Vesica Pisces in this language of Gematria sums to 134. And, you know, this might be a stupid point. It really doesn't make any sense, but the shape of the football is the Vesica Pisces, the most important shape in sacred geometry, which is directly connected to Gematria. I know it doesn't make any sense. Anyway, Vesica Pisces 134. Also in Gematria, Vesica Pisces sums to 53, just like Josh Gordon, and here we are in the season that will end in Super Bowl 53. So, coming back to this incident, we had the shooting at 1:34 p.m. And the location of the shooting was called GLHF Game Bar. And some video game guys, they told me that means good luck, have fun. I didn't know that, but thank you for that useful knowledge. Anyway, GLHF Game Bar, where the shooting happened at 1:34, 53. I mean, what a perfect time. What a perfect coincidence. Also, with regards to it being a shooting at that time, I should mention that shooting sums to 53 as well. Incidental. And again, if you haven't seen the tragic footage, I mean, this footage is so convincing. You know, to date, people have been saying, you know, these skeptics out here, these shootings, they've said, well, give me the evidence. Well, I mean, today they gave you the evidence. Did you see it? They showed you this screen, and in the background, you could hear the cap guns going off, and this guy even yells out, "Ow, what shot me?" You know, later they reported he was shot in the thumb. Unfortunate for a gamer, you know, busy with those joysticks. He'll probably never play Madden the same way again. So anyway, Jacksonville Jaguars heading into their 24th NFL season. We got the 24-year-old shooter. What else can I tell you about it? Oh yeah, also interesting, you know, that the upcoming Super Bowl is going to be in Atlanta, and this game that they showed on the TV, the two teams playing each other were Atlanta versus Atlanta. You think somebody's trying to tell us something? So, some other important details here. They gave us the name of the shooter. Again, he's the 24-year-old, and his name's David KATZ. And the first coincidence that screamed out at me were his initials, D and K. D's the fourth letter, K's the 11th. 411, when all afternoon I've seen these headlines of 11 people shot, 4 dead. David KATZ must study Gematria, you know, this completely irrelevant study. Some other things that screamed out about David KATZ's name. Let's start with the surname. KATZ has this gematria of 23. And so does Madden, so does Jaguars. And from this Sunday, this shooting came on a Sunday, like how football's played on a Sunday. From this Sunday to Super Bowl Sunday, Super Bowl 53, is going to be 23 weeks later. Perfect. What else is interesting about 23 is football has gematria of 83, murder gematria of 83. 83 is the 23rd prime number. The 23rd prime. And, you know, there happens to be this song out there, Murder by Numbers. Coincidentally, it came out in the year 83. There's this movie, Murder by Numbers, same title. The movie poster, they changed the E to a 3, the B to an 8, 3 and 8, 8 and 3. Murder, football, come together today through the Madden story. 83 is the 23rd prime. We're 23 weeks from Super Bowl 53. It's happening in Jacksonville, the home of the Jaguars. Also notice David KATZ, gematria 55, like GLHF game bar. 55 there as well. A few other numbers pop, but they don't really matter. We covered the primary coincidences that are worth mentioning. Also interesting, they said that this shooter was actually in the tournament and he had lost, and like a poor sport, he came back and shot up the joint. And what's so interesting is the word lost has gematria of 66, loser gematria 66, Jacksonville JAGUARS 66, mass shooting 66, and lo and behold, NFL also 66. 66 was the year of the first Super Bowl. And there seemingly is this big coincidence with the way this all lines up with the upcoming Super Bowl. 66 is also the 11th triangular number, meaning if you had 1 through 11, it equals 66. They said 11 people were shot. Football is a game of 11 on 11. Now let's go off into full-blown tinfoil hat mode here. Earlier this year, there was a story about a jaguar killing a bunch of animals in a New Orleans zoo. You might have heard this story. It was from July 14th, 2018. And, you know, silly old me, I decided to look at the Jaguars' schedule, and I noticed that the first team they played in the preseason was New Orleans. And lo and behold, this story is about a jaguar killing animals in a zoo in New Orleans. And what was so weird about it is the date that the attack happened was a date with numerology of 39, and Audubon is the name of the zoo, which equals 39. And it was also a date with 59 numerology, and the word kill has gematria of 59. From the date of the zoo attack to the date of the preseason game was 26 days later. The word kill also has gematria of 26. And lo and behold, this shootings happened on the 26th day of August. Kill also 26 there. You know? Also, with regards to this happening July 14th, that date's written 14/7, like 147. And the first week of the regular season, the first Sunday to Super Bowl Sunday every year is 147 days. 147. Now, this story right here that happened July 14th, from this story to today's incident, August 26th, is 43 days later. 43 days later. And if you caught my other video on the coincidences earlier, Jacksonville equals 43, Florida 43, football 43, killing 43, Masonic 43. Last week, August 17th, 2018, a date with 43 numerology, there was a shooting at a high school football game in Florida, very close to the Stoneman Douglas High School. Stoneman equals 43. In both incidents, all the reporting came from the police. Policeman, 43. And again, In this world of coincidence, where everything is explained with this one simple word, it's so strange how the majority of police are in Freemasonry, and in every town in America, the police station's right next to the Masonic Lodge. Amazing how all this lines up. And you know those Freemasons, they're a bunch of weirdos. They're also into this coincidental language of Gematria, you know. Again, in the base ciphers, Jacksonville's also 191, the 43rd prime. Don't want to be super redundant because we covered a lot of this earlier today. There's that 4 dead, 11 shot, like the initials of the shooter, DK 411. But there is something that I meant to tell you about earlier that I forgot. Something super important. Just in case you want to look at all this again, it'll all be linked down in the description. But there's just something that's so amazing, because I actually wrote a book about, you know, all these coincidences throughout history, which is also linked down in the description if you're interested in reading about it. But that thing that I wrote about in one of the most important chapters in the book, it's happened again. It has happened again. From the Stoneman Douglas shooting to this shooting, remember Stoneman Douglas was in Florida, that was the Valentine's Day massacre. It's 193 days later, which as we covered earlier is the 44th prime, shooting 44, gunfire 44, kill 44. But notice also, it's 6 months and 12 days later, and 612 is the number that we talked an awful lot about when Stoneman Douglas happened. Again, the Stoneman Douglas shooting happened right after the Super Bowl. Let me come back here for a moment. You'll recall the Super Bowl last year, the Eagles won in Minnesota over the Patriots. The Stoneman Douglas logo looks like this. The Eagles logo looks like this, very similar. And you'll recall that star player for the NHL team in Philadelphia invited the Stoneman Douglas hockey team that won the championship 7-4 to watch a game in Philadelphia. But when Philadelphia won the Super Bowl, just days before the Stoneman Douglas shooting, they won it in Minneapolis, which is the 612 area code. And Stoneman Douglas is named after Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, who's from Minneapolis. And it wasn't just that. There were just all these other coincidences with 612. So let's just go through. From the June 12th shooting at the nightclub 612 in Orlando, Florida, to the Stoneman Douglas shooting was 612 days later. 612 shooting, June 12th, 612 days later, Stoneman Douglas. It was on Valentine's Day, and in this, really just, I don't even know why anyone would ever study it, because, it just leads you to nowhere. But anyway, Valentine in this, this, I can't express how stupid it is, I just have to be so repetitive. In this worthless study, Valentine sums to 612, And over the years, just going all the way back to Columbine, these same numbers, they just come up for, I don't know, again, some coincidental reason, but Columbine High School was a 612. I don't know if you know this, but all the gun rights got taken away in the UK after the Doon Blaine massacre, which equals 612. From the Doon Blaine massacre, which happened March 13th, 1996, to the Sandy Hook school shooting, where there's been this major upsurge and taking away the gun rights, and rightfully so, because the world would be so much safer. Before World War II, a lot of nations had their gun rights taken away, and look how safe those years were. Just think about it. Those who don't know history are doomed to repeat it. But anyway, from the Doon Blaine massacre to Sandy Hook, where there was just this major upsurge and getting out this important agenda, 6,120 days. 612. I got to credit Derek for that one. That was his find. Police, also, the ones who do all the reporting and all these incidents, they got that old 612. So, covered this in great detail in my book, Letters and Numbers. Book you'd probably never want to read unless you're into this study. But here it is again, you know. And I did say in that book, if you read it, you know, get a pen and pencil because there's probably a new story in the headlines today that you can build onto this chapter with. And here's one of those examples. So, I think those are the main things worth discussing that we missed earlier. Again, I want to send out a shout out to David Hogg. David Hogg wrote that great book, Never Again. You know what's the coincidence there? Never Again is the slogan for the Holocaust, and they said the majority of students shot at Stoneman Douglas were in Holocaust remembrance class. Room 1214. 1214, like the date of the Sandy Hook shooting, you know. Scott Israel, he was the leading spokesman on that incident. And don't dare look up the demographics for the Stoneman Douglas neighborhood. Coincidentally, it's over 80% Jewish. And that's another group of people that are really into this nonsensical study of Gematria. It's probably a coincidence that Gematria, English, Masonic, Jewish, they all have the same numerical value. You know, what else would it be? What other word could describe it? So again, shout out to David Hook, or what's his name? David Hogg. David Hogg. How could I mess that great name up? David Hogg. Brilliant speaker. Real American hero. Also a thank you to Emma Gonzalez. She's got that super cute shaved head. Always a good look on the ladies, you know. You guys seen that commercial on TV? What is masculinity? You know. Being a little girl and wearing skirts is the conclusion they come to. And in 2018, being a woman, shaving your head and letting your armpits grow long. So, strange times we're living in. But we'll leave it there, truth seeker. Until next time. What would David Hogg do if I forgot about this coincidence? You know, the shooter's name is David KATZ. And what does KATZ remind you of? Does it remind you of felines, Jaguars, you know, 24-year-old David KATZ, the Jaguars' 24th season? This coincidence theory is where it's at. Till next time.